Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our Total War Warhammer 2 Legendary Lord lore video on Tretch Craventail. Now, Tretch Craventail was born in the breeding pits of Clan Rictus. Now, he was born kind of a scrawny Skaven, not much to look at size-wise, which meant that growing up in the clan, he had to really use his wits to get about and survive, and he used them very successfully as well. Now, Clan Rictus itself is located mainly within Crookback Mountain, over here within the Dark Lands. Now, the Dark Lands is an area we haven't really touched on yet in Total War Warhammer, but we are probably going to see it in the third game if I was to take a guess, because there's a lot of stuff going on this part of the old world. At Crookback Mountain, the Rictus clan mainly makes their money from charging tolls from Skaven armies or raiding parties coming through Mad Dog Pass, either looking to scour for warpstone or to collect some goblin slaves. Now, the Darklands is just rife with goblins, so Clan Rictus really has access to an almost inexhaustible supply of goblin slaves to make use of. So that's kind of their main import. They sort of grab the slaves, sell them off, and then sort of take some warpstone from the area as well. But their main business is really charging a toll for any Skaven going past, looking to gain access to the Darklands. They charge you sort of, let's say, 1,000 whatever's going in, and they'll double the price for you coming back. That's just the way they make their money, the sneaky gits that they are. But being in this location, a lot of their activity involves raiding parties. So they send raiding parties out to the Darklands to grab gobbos, to enslave them, to go and sell on to other Skaven clans, or just to use themselves for labor. And they also send out raiding parties to go and search for warpstone within the Darklands themselves. So raiding parties is really kind of their primary, let's say occupation. And so being a scrawny git, Tretch Craventail didn't really stand like a great chance of making it onto one of these raiding parties, and so he had to kind of worm his way onto a team. But worm his way onto a team he did eventually, and it was really during one of his first expeditions with this claw pack that he really started to make a name for himself. So the claw pack goes off into the Darklands to hunt for some gobbos, and they come across a gobbo camp, and they're like, alright guys, let's do this the normal way and just charge them down. It might be a bit of a fight, we might lose one or two Skaven. That scrawny guy in the back's probably gonna get it, but the rest of us are probably gonna be okay. To which point we see kind of an arm raised up, and it's Tretch Craventail, the scrawny one in the back. He's like, guys, I might have another approach we can take to this. Just hear me out without eating me or killing me or whatever, and that would be really fantastic. And what he suggests is, because then you can they're overlooking the camp, all these gobbos are kind of like, not completely getting smashed, but gobbos like a drink of fungus beer from time to time. And so the Skaven, being kind of sneaky and stealthy when they want to be, he was like, you know what, let's spike their beer, and then they'll all pass out. The ones that aren't drunk will just kill, and that will save a lot of lives, and the scrawny guy at the back might not get killed. And so they're like, alright, let's try this out. So they sneak in, they poison the fungus beer, and all the gobbos, or at least the vast majority of them, are passed out. The raiding party descends upon the camp, kills any gobbos silly enough to be sober that evening, and enslave the rest. Now in this gobbo camp, there's not just gobbos, but there's trinkets and loot, and all kinds of interesting little items. And so what the boss does is, the boss of this claw pack is like, alright guys, nicely done. Scrawny guy, good idea. As a reward, you know what, scrawny guy? You can carry, the best stuff that I'm probably going to keep, but you carry some of the best loot on you, and we'll make sure that you don't get too hard a time on the ride back, and while we beat these gobbos into shape and take them back to Crookback Mountain. So they set off back to Crookback Mountain, trying to deal with these gobbos, and unawares, at some point Tretch Craventail had acquired a little barrel under his arm. Thinking not too much of it, the Skaven boss kind of assumes that he maybe took a little bit of unspiked fungus beer for himself to drink on the trip. So no one really is too concerned about what Tretch Craventail's up to. Kind of got a backpack full of the loot on. He's just a wee guy, he's not much of a threat. So time goes on, they're making it up the hill, but you know what, Tretch Craventail is a sly Skaven, and he has a plan to climb that ladder to success. So they get to a fork in the road, and the boss gets up there. He's like, he can't really remember which way to go, if it's left or right. And they're in a tunnel system as well, the Skaven tunnel system. And he calls over some of the bigger guys, some of the squad bosses and stuff. And he's like, lads, Which way was it again? Does anyone remember? And this is where Tretch Craventail times his plan to perfection. A few moments before, when he realized the boss was about to stop and gather the other bosses to him, he went to the gobbo slaves and opened up his little barrel. Now, what it was in this little barrel was distilled madcap mushrooms. Now, madcap mushrooms are the stuff that gobbos take when they want to turn into fanatics. Those crazy spinning goblins who just charge headfirst into the enemy, spinning a massive ball and chain without a thought of their own life, just launch into a frenzy of attack, destroying anything in their path, friend or foe. Now, what he's done is he's given this to all of the gobbos, all chained to each other, and they kick off. They just start spinning each other like maniacs. Corpses are flying everywhere. They charge straight forward at the boss, the little pack of bosses that were there, and they're just swinging each other's corpses as weapons into the Skaven, just crushing it skull against skull, bone against bone. It is just a massacre. There's blood everywhere. It is horrific. Now, at this point, most of the Skaven host is just like, what the F was that? How did the goblins just go absolutely mental and kill all of our bosses? What do we do now? Don't worry, a shout comes from the back. I've got you guys. I'll guide us home. I know the way. And none other than Tretch Craventail steps up to take leadership of this claw pack and march them home after a successful goblin raid where they brought back maybe not a lot of goblins left, but a lot of loot. And so he was very highly praised for that, and, kind of taking over the expedition. Now that he had a couple of men under him, the ambitious Tretch Craventail began to sort of build his reputation, being known for setting ambushes all over the old world, winning a number of notable victories, achieving a number of great things, amongst which was during the Battle of Black Crag. It was Tretch Craventail who'd uncovered a hidden path to get round the dwarven firing line and ambush the dwarves. It was Tretch Craventail who came up with the plan to tunnel underneath the Black Orc camp of Dagbad, the great warrior in the Darklands, and steal all of his gobbos as slaves. It was Tretch Craventail who escaped the Imperial galleon on the River Ava with all of their loot as the only survivor, really just building up adventure after adventure, accolade after accolade, and every time coming back to his clan bosses and being rewarded. At some point, he felt, my reputation's reached the level that I think I can take the next step up the ladder and become Chieftain. Now, as I understand it, the leader of Clan Rictus is a warlord, and he's a warlord by the name of Cratch Doomclaw. Now, at this point, Rictus isn't trying to become a warlord, but he's trying to become like one of the warlord's lieutenants, one of his top guys. And so it's like, I'm ready to take that step up. Now, the sneaky Tretch Craventail, of course, comes up with a dastardly plan. He hangs himself from the ceiling and disguises himself as a stalagmite. I think that's the ones that... stalactite. The ones that hang from the top. So he disguises himself as a stalactite, waits for the boss to pass underneath him, unwraps himself, leaps from the ceiling, and cuts the chieftain in half. Now, at this point, he just takes leadership over, and he built up enough of a reputation that the rest of the Skaven were like, oh no, that's cool, we'll follow you, boss, you're new boss, we're fine. So having gone from a band of merry Skaven, he now has a full-on army under his control. And with this army, he begins to increase his reputation even further. He starts to organize raids at the nighttime on Imperial towns. He organizes raids into the Darklands, looking for Warpstone. He's really making the most use and earning a fearsome reputation for his army and his actions. Now, Tretch Craventail's reputation had grown to such a degree at this point that other chiefs and sort of other people of his rank and slightly above, maybe more senior, were not happy at the pace of which he was climbing the ladder, and they wanted to kind of put a stop to it. Now, during a battle, they'd maybe let out a little smile whenever they saw a piece of his weapon equipment explode near where Tretch Craventail was based, hoping it got him, hoping he went up in that huge fireball, or they'd see the enemy just completely crushing the flank that Tretch Craventail had been assigned, that even if he had lived, the warlord would be so pissed at him he'd probably kill him, but no. Tretch Craventail always survives, and if he sort of loses a battle, he himself has always popped up and done something very noteworthy within the battle, helped turn the tide, and won the day, leaving his enemies with very little ammunition to use against him. They've also kind of lifted this to the next level, whereas anyone who's slightly senior above him in the chieftain ranks always assigns Tretch Craventail the most impossible missions to do, in the hope that he'll never return, in the hope that it's a suicide mission, or he won't complete the task. One or the other. Either way, it will start to take him down rungs on the ladder, which he has been climbing so successfully and so quickly that it's starting to terrify his seniors. But no matter how impossible, no matter how suicidal the task, his army might not return, many of his troops might not return, but Tretch Craventail always comes back, job done. Now, a lot of people describe him as being a particularly treacherous, and maybe even earning him the name Tretch Craventail, or accuse him of running away, but you know what? That's very Skaven-y, and you know what? Tretch always gets the job done. So really, for a Skaven, pretty much, fairly admirable as a guy. Gets the job done, but not like Queek, who would maybe just blow everything up, but gets the job done with, a certain amount of modicum of grace, shall we say. So, you shouldn't really be bad on Tretch unless you're a rung above him on the ladder to success, and then you're probably shitting yourself that you're going to be next in line for his dastardly schemes. And that really sums up where Tretch Craventail is at the time of the game, and it kind of makes sense that his starting position is sending him off to Nagaroth, because that's kind of a suicide mission. A Skaven coming back from the middle of Dark Elf territory? Yeah, likely Tretch Craventail. So I'm willing to let that go from a narrative perspective, and we may see him move to Crookback Mountain when the original home of Clan Rictus makes it onto the Mortal Empires map, but for now it kind of completely makes sense where he is. In terms of some of his tabletop rules, Tretch Craventail has a couple. He has one known as Tretch Raiders, whereby a unit he's in, whether it be a unit of Clan Rats or Storm Vermin, get to re-roll rolls to hit. So it just would effectively translate as a raised melee skill for a particular unit. Now, you might have seen that as a banner, but we didn't see that as a banner in Total War Warhammer. We saw it as a constant augment around himself and allies in range of weapon damage. It does increase melee attack, and it does increase armor piercing. So you know what, that's kind of fair enough, because it's like the idea that it's a unit he's in, but in this case, it's just more of a, where he's around. Now, it would have been fun to have seen it as a banner, much like the way that Grimgor Ironhide has a banner of units, because it is called Tretch's Raiders, so like it kind of signifies they're his unit. But you know what, that's fine. It's good enough implementation of that rule. The other rule he has is stay here, I'll get help, whereby he can leave the unit he's in so he doesn't die, and this was kind of a risky maneuver on the tabletop, because you'd roll 3 dice, and that would be the distance he could move. Now, if he couldn't move far enough to make it into another unit, he'd just leave the battle. That would be him gone. So it was kind of a risky maneuver, but you know what? If times are tough, you need to run away, he's got you covered. Now, in Total War Warhammer, that rule was more of a stalk around. He gowned himself that lasts for 31 seconds. It's not the best implementation, but you know what? It's a tricky mechanic to bring in. So at least they have brought it in on the stay here, I'll get help rule that he had on the tabletop. Now, in terms of his item, he only has the one magical item, and that is his Lucky Skull Helm. Kind of in the way that Queek has his whole rack, but Tretch just has his one lucky helm. And in the tabletop, what that did was, it acted as a good luck charm. It was from one of his defeated rivals. I'm not sure if we're ever told who. I wasn't able to find out who it was he had defeated. But it gives him a ward save, a 50% ward save on the tabletop, and he would get 1 chance per game to re-roll a dice on whether he hit an enemy, whether he wounded an enemy, or on like a roll of dice on any of the rules above, stuff like that. So really, he kind of had a chance to change his fate. That was the idea. He had this kind of lucky chance to do something that wouldn't have otherwise happened. Now, in the game, it kind of gives him damage resistance, which is meant to represent that ward save, the speed thing allowing him to run away. There's no real... Total War Warhammer doesn't really like random chance, so there's no real way to represent that from the Lucky Helm's perspective. I'm trying to think, it would be fun if he got like an extra something from time to time randomly in battle, like a an extra ally unit comes in, or an extra something like that. Or even an extra chance to find a magical item. That would have been a good campaign effect to have on the Lucky Helm, in my view. Just to, add it up a little bit to make it make a bit more sense. But that was the thing they did. Ambush chance, I suppose, that's kind of lucky if you can ambush, but that's just kind of Tretch's thing anyway. He doesn't need help ambushing. But that's him, guys. Hope you enjoyed this video. It's a bit of a short one. Not a huge amount of lore on Tretch Craventail, but he's kind of a fun character for the Skaven. One of the newer Skaven characters as well. So when we first started to get inklings that it was going to be Tretch as the 3LC Lord, took me a little bit by surprise. But, it's a fun idea, and, you get him over to the Darklands on an impossible suicide mission, see if he can make it back to Crookback Mountain. Kind of a fun idea, and maybe when we get Mortal Empires in the third game, we might see his mission being just get back to the mountain. That would be kind of a fun task from the Nagaroth. Alright guys, as always, a huge thank you all for watching, and hope to catch you all on the next one. Alright guys, bye.